There's a kind of confidence most people never fully understand. It's not loud, it's not aggressive, it doesn't try to dominate the room or demand attention. In fact, it often looks almost effortless. But the moment people feel it, something shifts. Because most confidence you see is manufactured. People rehearse what they're going to say. They adjust their tone depending on who they're talking to. They watch reactions closely, constantly scanning for approval or rejection. It's subtle, but it's there. And that's why it feels unstable. The moment the environment changes, their confidence changes with it. But real confidence doesn't work like that. It doesn't depend on the room. It doesn't depend on validation. It doesn't even depend on the outcome. It comes from something internal, something steady. And when someone carries that kind of presence, people notice immediately. Not because they're trying to stand out, but because they're not trying at all. Think about how most interactions work. Someone speaks and everyone unconsciously reads them. Do they hesitate? Do they rush? Do they look for approval after they finish talking? These signals tell people everything they need to know. And most people give those signals away constantly. A slight pause filled with tension shows doubt. Over-explaining shows insecurity. Rushing to respond shows the need to be accepted. But when those signals disappear, something unusual happens. When someone speaks clearly, pauses comfortably, and doesn't feel the need to fill every silence, it creates space. And in that space, attention naturally moves toward them. Why? Because calm certainty is rare. Here's where it gets interesting. Confidence doesn't just affect how you feel. It changes how other people feel around you. When someone senses that you're completely comfortable with yourself, it removes the usual social leverage they rely on. They can't easily impress you. They can't easily shake you. They can't easily predict you. And that creates tension. Not loud tension, not conflict, but a quiet awareness. They start becoming more conscious of their own behavior. They think more carefully about what they say. They start noticing their own hesitation, their own uncertainty. And without you doing anything, you've shifted the dynamic. That's why real confidence can make people nervous. Not because it's intimidating in an obvious way, but because it's stable in a world where most people aren't. And when someone is that stable, it forces everyone else to feel their own instability. To understand this deeper, you have to look at what makes most people feel uncertain in the first place. It's not that they lack ability, it's that their confidence is constantly being negotiated in real time. Every reaction they receive slightly adjusts how they feel about themselves. If someone agrees with them, they feel stronger. If someone questions them, they hesitate. If someone ignores them, they start overthinking. So their confidence isn't stable, it's reactive. And when confidence is reactive, it becomes fragile. That's why even capable people can feel unsure in certain environments. Put them around someone more dominant, more expressive, or more unpredictable, and suddenly their behavior changes. Their tone shifts, their posture tightens, their words become more cautious, not because they forgot who they are, but because they're unconsciously seeking validation again. Now compare that to someone who has internal confidence. They don't need the room to agree with them. They don't need immediate feedback to feel certain. They don't adjust themselves just to fit the energy around them. And because of that, their behavior slows down. They speak at their own pace, not the pace of the room. They pause without discomfort instead of rushing to avoid silence. They don't over-explain just to make sure they're understood. That controlled pace sends a powerful signal. It shows that they are not seeking approval. It shows that they are not afraid of being misunderstood for a moment. It shows that their confidence doesn't depend on how others react. And people feel that instantly. Another key moment where this shows up is during disagreement. Most people experience disagreement as pressure. The moment someone challenges them, their mind speeds up. They feel the need to defend, to justify, to prove. Their tone becomes sharper. Their words come faster. They're trying to regain control of the situation. But someone with real confidence doesn't rush like that. They listen fully. They pause. They respond without urgency. And that lack of urgency changes everything. Because now, the pressure doesn't sit on them. It shifts to the other person. The person who expected a reaction doesn't get it. The person who expected resistance meets calm. And suddenly, they're the one adjusting. They're the one thinking more carefully. They're the one becoming aware of how they're coming across. That's the subtle power of confidence. It doesn't push. It doesn't force. It simply stays steady long enough for the other person to feel the difference. And that difference is what creates that quiet sense of nervousness. The final level of confidence is when it stops being something you manage and becomes something you live from. At the beginning, you're aware of it. You remind yourself to slow down, to stay composed, to not rush your words. You catch yourself when you start over-explaining. You consciously hold your frame. But over time, that effort fades. You don't think about being confident anymore. You just operate from it. You stop monitoring yourself in every interaction. You stop analyzing how you came across. You stop replaying conversations in your head trying to fix what you said. That constant internal noise disappears. And in its place, there's clarity. You speak because you have something to say. You stay silent because you don't need to fill space. You respond because it makes sense, not because you feel pressure to react. That's when your presence becomes noticeable in a different way. Because now, it's not about what you do, it's about what you don't do. You don't chase attention. You don't seek validation. You don't adjust yourself just to be accepted. And that absence of need creates a very specific kind of energy. People feel like they can't quite move you. They can't easily influence your mood. They can't pull you into their emotional pace. And that's where the tension comes from. Because most interactions rely on mutual adjustment. People read each other and adapt in real time. But when you stop adapting out of insecurity, the other person becomes more aware of themselves. They start thinking, am I saying the right thing? Why aren't they reacting? Did I miss something? And without realizing it, they begin to overthink. That's why real confidence can make people nervous, not because you're trying to intimidate them, but because your stability removes the usual feedback they rely on. Here's the deeper truth. Confidence isn't about proving that you're better than anyone. It's about not needing to prove anything at all. When you reach that point, your energy becomes consistent. It doesn't spike when you get attention or drop when you don't. It stays level, grounded, controlled. Arguing and consistency creates trust, but it also creates distance, because most people can't match that level of internal control. They're still reacting, still adjusting, still seeking signals from the outside. And when they encounter someone who isn't doing that, it feels different, almost unfamiliar. That's why they become more careful, more observant, sometimes even slightly nervous, because they're no longer interacting with someone who needs approval. They're interacting with someone who already has it, from within. And that's the kind of confidence that doesn't just get noticed. It shifts the entire room without saying a word.